What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Lollipops to Die For. I'm your host, Stephanie, and this is my co-host,
Simona.
And today we're going to talk about the Los Angeles fetus scandal that happened in 1982. Let's get into this.
So the Los Angeles fetus disposal scandal happened in 1982. And it happened by just discovering 16,000 aborted fetuses in a improperly stored facility owned by Malvin Weisberg in Woodland Hills, California, at his home. And this entailed a legal battle between the state, the city, everybody. It was called The National Tragedy by then President Ronald Reagan and inspired a song by pop singer Pat Boone, with the fetuses finally being buried in 1985. But let's get into the details.
So, Malvin Weisberg had operated medical analytic laboratories in Santa Monica from 1976 until March of 1981. He purchased a 20-foot storage container in 1980, delivering it to his Woodland Hills home and paying for it with a bounce check of $1,700. The container was repossessed on February 3rd, 1982 by Martin Container Company based in Wilmington area of Los Angeles. The company opened the container on the following day, discovering the fetuses, which were stored in formaldehyde.
Imagine that sight. But the initial press conference, which happened on February 5th, 1982 by the Los Angeles County Health Department, they said that up to 500 fetuses were found. But on February 24th, 1982, the count of fetuses was raised to approximately 2,000. But then it gets higher, with the majority of them being from the storage container and 200 to 300 from the Weisberg garage. The tally of the fetuses was estimated for up to 17,000 in May 1982 and was later finally set to 16,431. The count of 193 fetuses were evidently over 20 weeks gestation, with the oldest almost 30 weeks. So this is like babies.
Yeah, because they were almost born. The fetuses resulted from pregnancies terminated by licensed physicians, clinics, and hospitals who contracted with medical analytic laboratories for pathology testing and disposal of the fetuses. The Los Angeles County District Attorney, John Van de Kamp at the time, said that the fetuses would be individually examined and charges would be filed against the doctors if fetuses were over 20-week gestation limit allowed by the California law at the time. Officials found 193 fetuses that appeared to be over the 20-week limit. Van de Kamp wanted to turn the remaining fetuses over to groups who would perform memorial services for them.
In 1982, President Ronald Reagan wrote a letter advocating for memorial services for these children, referring to it as this is national tragedy. So the point was, these fetuses were found, and for years they were legally battling over it.
Right.
The matter came in front of the judge because of a lawsuit filed against Van de Kamp by Carol Downer of the Los Angeles Feminist Women's Health Center and the American Civil Liberties Union. John Lynch, the chief deputy counsel, stated it was inappropriate to enjoy Van de Kamp, who was simply a man in the middle, and that the lawsuit should be filed against abortion rights groups instead. So they were fighting between themselves.
Yeah.
At some point in October 1982, Van de Kamp petitioned the court to allow the burial of all these fetuses in common graves at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery, which offered free burial. The fetuses were not buried at Valhalla, which later stated it offered the burial plot because the right to life groups came to us. And we said we wouldn't endorse any political viewpoint, but we thought they're entering the body was a proper thing to do as a service. So basically cemeteries were volunteering to bury these fetuses.
Right.
In December 1982, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Eli Chernow ruled the 20-week limit was unconstitutionalized. Also ruling that Van de Kamp could bury the fetuses and anti-abortion groups could hold on-site services. By July 1983, the district attorney was Robert Filibosian, who stated he preferred a dignified burial and would not file charges. So
basically, it was just like a bunch of legal action that came, and the fetuses in the end did not get buried until like 1985. And it's just because, one person wanted them buried. The ACLU wanted them cremated, saying that it's just tissue. It's not actual fetuses. It's not actual babies. So, the fight began, about all this. And that's what caused the delay of the burial 3 years later.
Which is so sad.
Until they actually got buried in, not individual graves, but they were like 6 caskets, right? Lined up with the carcasses of the fetus. I know it's like carcass, refer that to an animal, but it's the same thing, right? It's just the bodies, the nameless bodies of these mutilated corpses of the fetuses were just basically piled into 6 caskets and buried at that time. So Weisberg's medical analytical laboratories had received nearly $175,000 in Medi-Cal payments, with $88,000 coming from the pathology tests on aborted fetuses. Of this half, $44,000 was paid federally through the United States Department of Health and Human Services. By Hyde Amendment, this money was ineligible for testing on pre-abortion or post-abortion tissue, which meant that the state of California would need to pay back federal funds claiming by Weisberg and by any other laboratories. Crusoe, the inspector, also stated prior to the closing in April 1981, the medical analytical laboratories, that was Weisberg's lab in Santa Monica, had routinely submitted questionable billings under the Medi-Cal program using erroneous billing codes. The case lacked criminal prosecutive merit due to the lack of proof that the false billings were intentional. Because the laboratory was out of business and its owner had declared bankruptcy, there were no assets against which to proceed for civil recovery, which is true. If you change your company name or you go bankrupt, nobody can come for you. So, it's just nature of the beast.
So bottom line,
so the pathologist was not responsible, even though he should have disposed. He did his job by doing pathology. However, for whatever reason, he kept them in a container, but he didn't eventually dispose of them, and that was kind of illegal right there.
Right.
But the mere fact that there was almost 17,000 fetuses was
the creepy part.
Pretty shocking.
Well, first, the creepy part is this man had a container on his lot at his house in Woodland Hills, and the container was stored on his property next to the house. Imagine the smell.
Right.
One.
Right.
Second of all, as a human being, I know he was a pathologist, so maybe he was immune to this kind of stuff, but it's a fetus there. Like, how do you pile them up? And also, how come his family didn't go through all that? Like,
he had a wife.
Wouldn't you be curious?
Upon investigating, he lived on Khalifa, I think it is. Avenue in Woodland Hills. But upon investigating and doing like different, reading different stories about it, he did have a wife because the wife walked up to the gate. But when they came there.
But that's the thing. As a wife, wouldn't you be curious to ask your husband, what are you hiding in your container? Yeah,
I know, right? But what would you think? If he bought it for the mere fact of that's exactly what he had in there, but he just wasn't disposing the bodies.
But as a wife, wouldn't you be like, okay, you have this whole thing?
Probably not. I
would be curious to know what he hides in the container.
He wasn't really hiding it because he bought it for that, which was fine. Right. You're supposed to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
And even as a neighbor, I'm thinking, okay, it's not one fetus, it's not 2. Even that would smell. But 16,000 would smell bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guy was
True.
holding it there, like on his property. And the only reason they found it is because he didn't make payments on his.
He defaulted, like at the bouncer check,
right,
and they repoed it.
right.
He was 2 payments away from being paid off in full.
So again, it's like that's the only reason that these poor babies were found dead because of it, and then you fight for 2-3 more years to just get
and
them
we don't
there.
even know if he's still alive, because at that time he was 33 years old. So today he would be like 76, 77. I don't even know if he's still alive, and trying to find any obituary on him, and I can't find anything.
Yeah, nobody can really find details on him, which
He's
is
just
like
kind of
interesting.
vanished.
Yeah, I think after the story, which blew up and became a national discussion.
Kind of get it.
Yeah, I think it's you want to go into hiding after that.
Yeah,
you're in between so many like abortion rights movements and state and all that. But it is creepy. It makes you think. Number one, if I would see any container on anybody's property, I would ask myself, what's in it?
What's in the box?
Like, I mean, granted, it doesn't have to be fetuses, but see, like, it can't be something that, like, it has to be something shady.
Yeah, you never know.
So, but, you know, at the end of the day, just pay attention. If you see somebody with some kind of weird container on their property,
It's true.
it might be true.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're hiding.
Just goes to show you guys, the truth is always scarier. Isn't it?
Yes.
Oh,
Ew.
yeah. Like when you know it,
I think it's
you don't want to see it, and
No.
once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, just like one of the guys that found and opened the container said, you know, I can't unsee it ever.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but thank you guys
Alright,
for being
guys.
here.
Until the next time.
Bye.